What's going on, guys? Ben from JK Gear and Gadgets.
And Cassie.
And welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another video. Today we are talking all about steering stabilizers.
Hey Ben, will it fix my death wobble?
Probably not.
Should I run the dual stabilizer setup?
Probably not.
Should I just not run one at all?
We'll talk about that in this video. So in this video, we're going to talk about all about the myths, the truths, and kind of dive into steering stabilizers, what you need and what you might not need at all.
Are we testing out this one today? The Teraflex Falcon Nexus?
I think so. We have it here. Let's get started. Before we start taking a look at stabilizers, all the aftermarket solutions, let's take a look at a factory unit. So on my Gladiator, everything underneath steering-wise is straight off the factory assembly line, completely stock. A steering stabilizer attaches to the axle to our steering linkages. It's this little shock looking thing right there, and all it's designed to do is act as a steering dampener. It takes out some of that vibrations. If we get a big, pothole here, it's gonna kind of absorb that impact so it doesn't transfer up to the steering wheel. Once we start doing other upgrades, sometimes it's nice to upgrade our stabilizer. Now here's where online everybody has their different opinions. Some people say that a bad steering stabilizer, once it kind of loses that dampening ability, it causes death wobble, which is not exactly the case. There's also a lot of other myths and completely wrong information online. Some people say you could run, without one at all, and it's perfectly fine. While it is okay to run without one, it's not really a good idea, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's check out some other stabilizer or steering setups right here in the yard. So the TJ or LJ has a very similar setup to the JKs and JLs and JTs. It's a little backwards though. It actually starts off on the axle over here and runs up to our drag link. We are running the Teraflex 9550 stabilizer. It's a pretty budget stabilizer. It's like 60 bucks, but it is an upgrade over the factory unit. Now on the JK, since I'm running 40s, 1-tons, and a bunch of other off-road upgrades, a stabilizer might not be the best choice. And that's why I went with hydraulic assist. It looks very similar to a stabilizer. It's attached at the axle and over here on our tie rod or steering linkage. As you can tell, it's actually a hydraulic ram. So this is actually assisting our steering. This ram moves in and out via the power steering pump to push our tires back and forth. We'll also get into that later. At what point do you need to ditch a stabilizer and move over to a hydraulic assist setup? Before we get into all that, let's go ahead and check out the new stabilizer we're gonna be installing on the Gladiator today. It is the Teraflex Falcon Nexus 2.2 stabilizer. This thing is fancy, let me tell you that. It doesn't look anything like any other stabilizer does on the market. It actually has a built-in mount. It's adjustable, soft, medium, and firm, and it actually has a pass-through design. So let's go ahead and unbox it. It's really not much of an unboxing, just kind of in here. And as you can tell, it just looks really nice. So the shaft actually passes through the shock body. Opposed to your standard shock that is gonna end here, and this rod just goes in and out of it, this entire shaft can pass through the body. It's really cool. I don't know how much of an upgrade that actually is within itself, but there's drive, innovation, drive, Falcon. I don't know, it has to be good. Now this is an expensive upgrade. This right here is about $350. You can get the one for $100 cheaper that does not have the adjustable settings, but I think the adjustable settings is what's really gonna make this ride really nice and enhance the Jeep. So let's check it out. The instructions look really simple to install this. But before we start diving too far into this, let's talk about some of the myths and truths about steering stabilizers. Myth number 1. A bad steering stabilizer will cause death wobble, and replacing it will fix your death wobble. That is not true. While a steering stabilizer can kind of remove some of that road feedback that you're feeling in the steering wheel, it will not fix your death wobble. Death wobble is a cause of worn out parts. So ball joints, steering, track bar, control arm bushings, or a mixture of all that. Adding a steering stabilizer might kind of hide that shimmy or wobble, but it definitely did not fix the issue. That is a very common myth, but luckily most Jeep owners have kind of realized that by now, and that's kind of been pushed to the side. It's not really a myth anymore, but there are a few people and a few companies that advertise a steering stabilizer as a complete fix. Now, rumor number 2, you don't even need a stabilizer. There's a lot of people on the internet that say they are a complete waste of money and you're better off not having one at all. Now, the issue with that is kind of forgetting the whole reason for a stabilizer. If we did not have this, the Jeep would still drive fine. This is not gonna, like, you know, prevent us from wandering on the road or drifting all around. What it is gonna do is kind of enhance the ride and almost make our steering setup a little bit stronger. So, like I already mentioned, that shock right there takes a little bit of the impact or harshness off of our steering linkages. So what this is doing is making it a little more stiff before we can turn. So we turn our steering wheel, it comes down the shaft, turns our box, and moves our steering linkages. Now the issue without a steering stabilizer is that if we hit a curb really hard, boom, what's gonna happen is all of that impact is gonna transfer right up our drag link, right into our steering box. Now the issue with that is we can really prematurely damage our steering box. They are pretty sensitive, or rip it off completely, and that has happened to people in the past. Now, will a stabilizer completely get rid of that, you know, possible issue? Not exactly, but it does offer a little bit of that vibration resistance or extra force against our hit. There's more to it than that. It does kind of just keep the steering in place when we're going down the road, and it's less likely to, you know, kind of prematurely wear our ball joint ends, our heim joints, or any other, you know, steering related components. So should you remove it completely? I do not think so, unless you're running a complete custom setup or hydraulic assist. And that brings me into myth number 3. You don't need stabilizers, you only need hydraulic assist. Personally, I think once you move really 37s or above is when you should start looking at hydraulic assist. What it does is take pressure off your steering gearbox and actually moves a lot more pressure down here. It just directly pushes in and out via this hydraulic ram. It helps turn these larger, heavier tires, especially when they're aired down off-road and have a lot of grip. You can start to hear your power steering pump whine and scream trying to turn these things, and hydraulic assist really takes it to another level. Makes it a lot easier to turn, and it's a lot stronger. On the Gladiator, why am I not moving up to hydraulic assist? We have 37s. Why not? This thing is gonna see more time on the road than off-road. Hydraulic assist is amazing off-road and on-road, but it is a very big upgrade. There's a lot of parts that need to be changed out. There is a little more maintenance to it, and it's a pretty intrusive install. So for this Jeep, I think a nice stabilizer is kind of gonna firm up the steering a little bit. I'm excited to see how it rides, and off-road, this thing is supposed to have some cool features with the soft, medium, and hard. We're gonna talk about that. But in the future, this probably will get hydraulic assist, but right now I don't think it's needed, especially since I don't off-road it that much. Let's head back in the garage. So now we're back here in the garage to our nice, fancy $350 stabilizer. One of the other myths, the 4th myth, is that you do not need to spend a lot of money on a fancy stabilizer. Some people say that a $60 or even just a factory unit is gonna do just as well as a nice one like this. We will find out soon. I've never ran one like this, and I've never ran an adjustable setting steering stabilizer. So I'm excited to see how this handles, how it works on the road at the end of this video once we get it installed. And for the final myth, number 5, is dual stabilizers work extremely well. Now, what a dual stabilizer is, I'll throw a picture right here. Boom. As you can tell, there's 2 steering stabilizers. The issue with those is that it almost creates too much resistance in the steering. So what it does is, I mean, it's just like a shock. Once you add 2 of them, it's gonna be very, very stiff. It might handle really well on the road. It might, you know, it just stays there. It's really nice and hard to turn. It feels great. But what that's doing is creating more drag on your steering. Your power steering pump has to work harder to make turns. So over time, it might damage your power steering pump. And while it feels nice on the road, you're just creating a ton of resistance to turning, almost like adding 40s on a Jeep. So do I recommend the dual stabilizer setups? No. And I think what will kind of mimic a dual stabilizer setup is a shock like this. Since it has the 3 settings, soft, medium, and firm, the firm is almost like adding another stabilizer. It might not go that far to that much resistance, but it's awesome that we can have the different settings. So let's go ahead and get this installed. This is gonna be very simple install. It looks like we just undo the 3 bolts on our linkage, the 3 bolts on our axle, kind of put this guy in, tighten it up, and call it good. Let's get this installed. The first thing I did was jack up the Jeep and put jack stands under the frame. That way we have a little more room to work under here. The first thing we're gonna do is remove these 3 nuts holding the stabilizer to our tie rod. We're then gonna remove the 3 bolts on the axle side bracket. And then we're gonna just go ahead and remove our old stabilizer. Now that we have the factory stabilizer removed, I put it up here on the bench and I'm kind of playing with it. I've noticed that it is fairly soft. It's easy to push in and it's easy to pull out. Equal resistance on the same, so it's 50-50. Not like a shock absorber where you push it in and it wants to return back out. This is a neutral shock, so it's the same pressure going in as it is going out. Now on the other hand, the Falcon shock definitely seems a lot stiffer. Once it gets going, it's not too bad. But we also have the different settings. So this is a medium setting, a lot more pressure is required, and we'll flip it to firm. Oh man, this is really, really stiff. I wouldn't want to run this firm setting once you already have large tires, or if you're off-roading. This would put a lot of strain on your steering box, but this firm setting might be perfect for driving on the highway when you really want a nice tight steering. Let's get this installed. The next thing we're gonna do is actually attach our stabilizer to our tie rod. But to do that, we are ditching this factory bracket that is on our tie rod for the original stabilizer, and we're gonna be installing Teraflex's new bracket system. Now, all you have to do is pop the old bolts out. This one right here, as you can tell, hits the drag link. So all we have to do is turn our steering wheel, or in my case, since we're kind of jacked up, just push it over just enough to remove this bolt. Now there's two different configurations on how these brackets and spacers go into play. If we still have the factory track bar, the spacer is gonna sit on top. If we're running an aftermarket track bar, we're gonna put the spacer on the bottom. The spacer is this little guy right here, and we're just gonna go ahead and lay it right here. Since I'm still running the factory track bar, it's gonna go on top. At this point, we can either wrestle our stabilizer or move the wheel until this slides into place of the bracket and we can drop our bolt in. And just like that, we are done with the install. As you can tell, it tucks up there nice and, nice and tight. I don't have to worry about this getting smashed by too many rocks. Now, if this was a rock crawling Jeep, sure, it might get a few hits, but for what we're gonna do with this Jeep, I think it's gonna do great. The adjustment knob is really easy to get to. As you can tell, soft, medium, firm, very easy to see and adjust. That's pretty impressive. Go ahead and pull this sticker off. Pulling off the sticker might be one of the harder parts of the install. There we go. And just like that, we are done with the install. Let's go ahead and lower the Jeep on the ground, hit the road, and see how this thing does. All right, we're starting off on the soft setting, and so far, it feels pretty nice. The steering does not feel, it almost feels a little easier to turn, I will say that. So almost like there's less resistance. Maybe once it's actually installed, it's a little bit softer than the factory stabilizer. Very easy to turn, I will say that. Let's see, no difference so far. It feels, just like it did before. Let's go ahead and bust a Yui here. So I can go ahead and tell you that turning is almost a little less resistance than factory, but it still dampens the steering. The steering input on the road when we're driving still feels the same. It's still nice, it still feels tight, but on those turns when we're turning the wheel, there's not extra resistance. I bet once we move it to up to the medium and hard setting or the firm setting, we're gonna kind of start feeling that steering wheel getting a little heavy. But what that also means is that when we're driving, like right now, it might feel like really nice and tight. It might feel like more of a sports car feel in regards to steering. So let's go ahead and pull up here, change it to medium, and continue down the road and see how it feels like that. So I think this is one of the nicest things about having the Teraflex Nexus is that we can kind of change up the feel. If we're going on a nice long cross-country drive, we might want to move it to medium or firm for that highway tight steering feel. When we're driving around town or hitting the trails, we might want it nice and soft so our steering wheel is easy to turn. That's really nice. So all we have to do, man, it's actually kind of hard to get up in here. Definitely not, a quick and easy adjustment because we do kind of have to lay on the ground, but we're gonna flip it to medium. All right, it's a little bit tighter Little more resistance. It's not bad. It's not too noticeable. I can definitely feel it a little bit. Now we're gonna take a right this time so the sun's not in our eyes the whole time. All right, definitely tighter. And yes, under 10,000 miles and I have a huge crack in the windshield. Typical JL and Gladiator issues. All right, let's bump up the speed a little bit. I'm really not getting as much of the road feedback as usual. The Jeep is kind of still bouncing around the road because this is a very wavy road that you really can't tell. So the Jeep is still moving, but I'm not getting all that feedback into the steering wheel. And that's what, you know, a stabilizer does. It's more noticeable now with the medium setting. You know, we're not getting as much feedback. So I'm definitely noticing a change so far. A few bumps up here. Let's see. Very little steering wheel like feedback. You go over a bump, it's not jogging the steering wheel. It's doing a very good job of you know, slowing down and kind of stopping that impact from transferring up. Let's go ahead and swap it over to firm. Firm, there we are. Let's go. Oh yeah. Yep, so there is a big big difference between medium and firm. I can already tell it feels amazing, but I definitely feel that added resistance. And it feels tight. I will go ahead and tell you that. It feels really nice. It definitely has more of that sports car feel, or, you know, like we're driving on tracks. This car's kind of screwing us up. But the stiff setting or the firm setting is very nice. I don't know, I said I was gonna leave it on medium. I might leave it on firm because this daily driving is really nice with this. I can just go ahead and picture it. This is a nice setting. Once we go off-road, definitely moving it to the soft setting. But is the Teraflex Falcon stabilizer, the Nexus 2.2, is it worth it? We will find out probably tomorrow. I'll drive it around some more, at least get another 50 miles behind it. But so far the adjustments, they're a lot more profound than I thought. When I first saw this, I'm like, it's probably pretty cheesy. You won't really notice a difference. They are definitely noticeable. And especially if I went from this hard setting to the soft setting, very noticeable indeed. It does feel more comfortable than the stock setup. But tomorrow, kind of once I drive this around, we'll talk about, is it worth it? You know, is it worth the $350? Is the stock one fine, or should you upgrade to something like this? Right off the bat, I'm thinking if your Jeep is a daily driver and you really do like, a nice tight steering with the option to adjust it later on if you need, I think this might fit your needs perfectly. Let's head home. I'm gonna go start editing this video, see how long it is, because right now it's looking like I've made a ton of footage and this is gonna be a really long video. But I mean, I think it's worth it because this feels great. This person probably thinks I'm drunk. I'm just kind of playing with it. It feels, it's a really nice steering feel. I'm gonna head home, start editing this video, and I will see you guys tomorrow, and we'll kind of wrap up this video talking about steering stabilizers. See ya. Let's see how it does at some higher speeds. Still felt pretty stable. I'm gonna have to block all that off. Felt pretty good for a Jeep on 37s. All right guys, just got back from 50 miles of driving with the new steering stabilizer setup. We're gonna make this ending short and sweet. Did it make a difference? Yes. I'm actually kind of blown away at the different, how it feels differently between the soft, medium, and firm settings. At first, I didn't really know how much of a difference to expect, but it really did make a difference. The soft definitely feels softer than the factory. That soft setting is where it's gonna be really nice. Off-road, rock crawling, trail riding, anything in general where we still want a very responsive steering feedback, but we don't want to put too much pressure on our power steering pump or gearbox. The medium setting is by far my favorite. Just overall, city driving and highway driving, it is a great feel. Now, the firm setting is definitely the best on the highway, but driving around town, going through, some of these back roads, it felt a little too stiff for me. So I'll probably leave it on the medium setting, and then once we hit the trails, blast it off to the soft setting. So let's kind of wrap up this video. Do I recommend upgrading your steering stabilizer? There's a lot of reasons you probably would want to, whether your old one is garbage, it's trashed, or you're just looking for something to kind of, increase your steering feel. maybe you just want, you know, a better riding Jeep. You know, there's so many reasons you could want to upgrade to a steering stabilizer, but my honest opinion is you almost have 3 choices. Either keep your factory one, because yes, it works perfectly fine. 2, upgrade to a nice adjustable one like the Teraflex Falcon Nexus. That's a mouthful. Or 3, go ahead and upgrade to Hydro Assist. Now, Hydro Assist is definitely some next level stuff. It is much more expensive. It is a lot harder to install, and it is, you know, there's a lot more to it than just adding a stabilizer. If you're on 37s or 40s or even bigger than that, and you want to start off-roading, rock crawling pretty hardcore, definitely go with Hydro Assist. Now, a Jeep like this, a mix of a daily driver on 37s, might see trails here and there, but nothing like insane. I don't think we'll need Hydro Assist. In the future, I might put it on, but for now, a nice adjustable stabilizer is exactly what I wanted. So, you know, it's kind of up to you. I wouldn't spend the money on like an $80 stabilizer just because you're not really getting too much out of it. Whereas this adjustable stabilizer, you know, I don't want a soft stabilizer on the road where it might be nice off-road, and then I don't want a super stiff stabilizer for on-road performance and then get off-road and struggle with that. So with this adjustable one, we kind of get 3 stabilizers in one, and I think it's a good fit. So honestly, don't spend the money, you know, on a nice stabilizer that's not adjustable. And that's kind of what this video is getting at. You don't really need it, but it is a very nice way to kind of fine-tune your steering. If you've been thinking about this and you have the budget for it, it is a great upgrade and you'll really like it. But I think that's pretty much it, guys. This covers the video. I would not suggest getting a stabilizer to kind of mask other issues. If you already have steering issues that, you know, need addressed, this might hide it a little bit, but that issue is still going to be there. So great upgrade so far, and we'll see in a few months how I still like it. But what else can we talk about? We have to finish up the light giveaway. So that was my last video, the $10 Amazon LED pods. I'm gonna go online, look at all the comments tonight, and pick somebody. And I think I might have to change the rules up a little bit. While I did say I was gonna give these sets away, I'm still gonna give these away, but I'm gonna go ahead on Amazon and buy a second set to give away to 2 people. There were a lot of comments on there. A lot of people offered. There was a guy that had a stroke and he was really low on money. A lot of those people actually offered to send him a set, even outside of my giveaway. So I want to thank all of you for that. The Jeep community is great, and it's awesome to see people, you know, step up and take care of those in need. So I'll be giving 2 sets away, one to a random person and another set to those who offered to pay for, you know, out of their pocket to ship somebody lights. Thank you for that, and you know, it really shows how strong the community is and all you awesome subscribers. Thank you so much. So I guess that's the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions at all about stabilizers in general or Hydro Assist or anything steering related, let me know in the comments below. And if you have upgraded your steering stabilizer, let me know what you're running and how you like it. Until the next video, guys, see you later.